My name is Alessandra Moctezuma, and I'm gallery director here at San Diego Mesa College. I'm also a professor of museum studies, and this is always a collaborative project because my students work with us in the art gallery and they learn about exhibition design and installation by working with us in all the exhibitions. And so I wanted to thank all of the students who were participating in this exhibition. I welcome you today. It's been a wonderful experience working with Helen. I think we've been working together on this show for over a year. Yeah. And to see it finally come to fruition is really exciting. I had so much anticipation for this evening and this day, and to have everybody be able to experience this wonderful work and to make it look, to make it shine in the gallery was very important to us. I also want to thank Helen's children, Nicole and Paul, and her granddaughter Shira for being here today and also joining in the conversation about Helen's work. And I'm going to read a little bit. I know that many of you are friends of Helen and you know her really well. But I'm going to read a brief bio of her also for our students who are here today so that they can learn more about her. Helen Redman is an internationally exhibited figurative painter, mixed media artist, and educator whose work spans 6 decades. Since the early 1960s, Redman has been creating, teaching, and presenting art from a female perspective that explores body image, personal identity, and life cycle experience. This has included pregnancy, mothering, loss, various stages of her children's growth and gender identity, menopause, and aging. Redman's work is included in the permanent collection of the Elizabeth Sackler Center for Feminist Art, the Brooklyn Museum in New York, the Women's Museum of California here in San Diego, the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center in Colorado Springs, and the Rose Medical Center in Colorado. She has taught at the University of Colorado and the University of Iowa and has been an active force for women in the visual arts since the 1970s, when she co-founded Front Range Women in the Visual Arts in Boulder, Colorado. After moving to California, she became the first president of the San Diego Women's Caucus for the Arts in 1990 and received their honor award for lifetime achievement in the visual arts in 2010. Redman received her MFA from the University of Colorado in 1963. Helen Barchelon Redman is the mother of Paul Barchelon and Nicole Frank, and the grandmother of Shira, Isaac, and Ethan Frank. In honor of her first child, Paula Barchelon, 1962-64, Helen helps women through the grief process as a co-facilitator of the Families Helping Families Mom Support Group at the Jenna Druck Center. She lives in San Diego with her husband, musicologist and author Kenny Weisberg.
And let's have him stand up.
So, just, before I bring her up to the stage, I just want to say that also as an artist and as a woman and as a mother, I really love this experience with Helen. To have her portray her family in such an intimate way, it's really unique. And I hope that you tell your friends about this exhibit, bring more people to see it. And also I wanted to let you know that on Friday, April 10th at 1:30, Helen will also be talking about her work in the gallery. So if you want to tell people about that too. And so now, without any further ado, here is Helen.
I haven't done this in a while. Is it all on?
Yeah, you don't have to be close to it, Mom. It's fine.
Wow. in the early feminist days, I used to get up and lecture to hundreds of people because I was charged with the importance of it. But now that I've gotten older, I'm a little introverted, like my turtle series. But so the first slide is sharing the lap lane, and really, I feel like you're all sharing a big lap lane with me here. Thank you all for being here. Some of you have come far and go back far into my past, and it's really, only one person here ever knew my daughter Paula, Connie Smith-Siegel, one of my oldest friends from graduate school. So it's really quite a moving experience to be sharing this work with you. And it is about sharing, and thank goodness I came to the right place for sharing it with Alessandra and her students and all the people I've met here at Mesa College. So I'm beginning with the alchemy of creation, of life itself. This work is so much about the whole cycle of life, but also I did this piece in 1993, shortly after going into menopause, the end of the reproductive cycle for a woman. And it's interesting to me that I actually called it birthing the crone, because I was trying to birth my elder, the mythic crone, the wise woman, the truth teller, the elder. But the theme was aging into full creativity, that I refused to accept that, this is like the end of our creative cycle, our reproductive cycle, whatever. It's the end of the reproductive cycle, but the creative cycle, the alchemy of creation goes on forever. There is no age to it. And that has been one of the most important messages that I've lived and worked with since 1993, and will work with, to me, the final swim there. I'm a swimmer, obviously. The final swim and the final aging into full creativity is aging into death and to the other side of whatever that may be. So all of the works carry that connotation as they go forward. And again, I wanted to tell you that because the narration here and in the show is through the eyes of an elder, through the grandmother. Even though I go back and take you through all these images as a mother, I'm speaking to you as a grandmother. It's that point in life. This is the title of the show. There have been other titles. Birth and death, life and entropy occur simultaneously. This is the nature of our world. One is being born, one is dying. Being able to say this, to create this painting, has been important for my own acceptance of death. Paula's death, the loss of many friends and family, and my own death. It took 3 versions to arrive at the wrapped canvas form, which you see here, which is now in a cocoon shape or a teardrop or a vagina, whatever you want to see it as. And it's actually quite a universal shape. It recalls like Our Lady of Guadalupe, the medieval art of Hildegard von Bingen, Judy Chicago's vaginal central images, and work that women have done throughout history that nobody sees or pays attention to. But in any case, it's also to me like a shroud. It's a wrapping. I remember when, particularly when I had Nicole in France, they wrap the children up in a way that they don't do in this country. But I can't remember the name of it.
Swaddling.
Swaddling.
Yeah.
It's also swaddling, yes. And an art historian friend of mine has said that the tear, with its double meaning of sorrow or gladness, as well as the tearing apart of cloth or tearing open, as in wounding or in discovery, are all part of the symbology. The name for this painting comes from a letter my daughter Nicole wrote to my dear friend David Tamayo, who died of AIDS just on the cusp of when all the new medications were coming through that helped people, but he wasn't there in time for that. Okay. I'm going to let you talk.
Yes, okay. So So it was a very difficult time for my mother. She was very close with David, and I navigate this death territory. My whole life I've navigated it from before I was born. I've been navigating it. And I spoke to my mom about that my personal belief and practice has to do with that David was going on a journey, and he was going to the other side of birth. That birth and death are similar adventures, and that we can think of them as sojourns through time to be experienced fully. Sorry, Mom.
You're going first.
Yeah, right. That was not a good idea. Okay. It's now her turn.
Right, we'll move to Shira.
Yeah, oh,
But, all right,
all right, Shira, you don't want to say
We're going to move to Shira because, you know, everything's been difficult about this show. Trying to describe it to anybody's been close to impossible. Titling it has been very difficult. For years I always had the Lifelines in my head. Then I also had Through a Mother's Eye. And I never had The Other Side of Birth as the name of this show. But I had this piece. And Shira saw this piece. How did it come about that you picked this as the title?
Well, I don't know if can you hear me? I had actually not grown up seeing my grandmother confront and talk about Paula's death. I think it was something that my mother was always talking to me about. But the fact that my grandmother started exploring this history very recently, and I felt like all I needed to do was just give you the courage to name this show, because it really is, the fact of that death is what made you, I think, able to see so deeply all of the other people you did bring into the world who are here, and to honor us with so much attention. So I felt this was really the beginning of what this show is about.
So you can see if my granddaughter says something, I follow. And my daughter, and I love that lineage, that title, the title had depth and resonance to it. And we actually wound up using Through a Mother's Eye. We never lose a title, by the way.
Yeah, they're always good.
That's the name of the second part of this show, which is at the Women's Museum that opens April 23, where Alessandra's also curating that, and we're going to mix the selections a little differently, and some pieces that were here will be there, but there's about 150 pieces in this series, so there was no venue that could show them all. But I have to say, the curation was so wonderful. At first I was so dismayed that I couldn't put all my babies out, you know? What Alessandra did with them was just it was the right solution for the for the space we had. I'm very grateful. Makes you really, really aware of curation. So I say, okay, move on.
Keep going, Mommy.
Okay. And that's Paula. And it's still emotional for me to look at her and see that image that has not been shown before, and to put her in the catalog and to write about this, to put those baby drawings out. We're not starting with the baby ones. But I want to start with just a wild, happy, crazy time. I was in grad school, and I was doing a lot of collage work, and it was, you know, at the height of abstract expressionism, and they had said figurative work was totally dead. There was nothing left to do in that. Picasso had signed it off with whatever he did, you know, in his a million variations. And nevertheless, that was where I was just curious about my own body, about my children, about other people. That's what fascinated me more than anything. So here it was, like, what is this like to breastfeed a baby? That's what the breast feels like. It's just shooting out like a mile out of you or something. So these are more abstracted. That's not any attempt to, that's me and Paula, but it's not being realistic in any way. And I love that piece, but it kind of has deteriorated a bit over time, because as a young art student, you know, you just start flinging everything on the canvas. And some of these I don't even know where they are, so putting this show together, or have been lost over time. But I did take slides of everything. Well, I was able to, you know, see this show and anyway, Okay, so here's baby Paula, and this is all collage materials and fabric and gluing. I've loved to do collage. Actually, my sister said to me that when I was 2 years old, I used to cut things out with a razor blade, and we all would cut things out. We were always piecing together, so she had that vision that I've always loved to, like the paper dolls or the things like that. There was always a strong inclination in me to cut things out and move pieces around. I don't like to be fixed in anything. And I wanted to mention to you, especially for the students in here, that what really ignited me to become an artist was life drawing. That was my beam in. I don't think I was going to be in art history or teaching, but I just sort of passionately went for this. And I learned about contour drawing, which is a way of touching, of seeing through touch, through all the senses. And that contour line that's in this, it's a very quick line, which what else could you do with a baby? So I did a number of those, and they were really in a drawer for a long, long time. I didn't see them even. And I don't know how I finally got them out and showed them to Doris, but Tara was one of the first people to see them. And all of a sudden people are saying, wow! And like Alessandra too, oh, these are wow. I mean, I had no idea. And it is fun to have so long go by, you can see your work like someone else did it. You can admire what you've done without being conceited because it's so far away already. It doesn't, I couldn't do that today. That is, you only draw like that when you've spent hundreds of hours drawing. And then, okay, I lose Paula while I'm 5 months pregnant with Nicole. And everything is about save this child. You can't express grief, you can't, I won't go into those circumstances, but what I had at that time was my art. That's what I had to get through my life. And it really was very, very powerful. In the 9th month of my pregnancy, I did one drawing after another. I was in Paris. My husband and I had left our home in Boulder, and he went off all day in the bibliothèque to study, and I was just home alone, which alone is very good for artists. I needed that quiet, alone time. And I needed these drawings. And at the same time, I was studying the Lamaze method of childbirth. So I was looking at like drawings and, what's the baby look like at this point in the belly, and somebody's pregnant here. We like to visualize where is that baby? Is it coming into the right position for birth? All these things that a mother thinks about as you're nearing this. But this was obviously supercharged for me. And that's, I want to acknowledge my husband, Jacques Barchelon, the father of my 3 children. And I'm going to let Nicole talk about these now.
Okay. So, I think what I want to share is that these are these are my favorite paintings of my mother's. She's been painting me a long time, or drawing me for a long time, and it's these expressions of color and life in the midst of profound grieving and death. It's such an affirmation. It's like a balancing of the scales. It's like a tuning of the soul. And color is extraordinarily important to me. And I got that from this woman. I don't think very many people grow up in the kind of home environment that I did. Every surface in our home was covered with beautiful art. There was not a space. My dresser was painted. The doors were painted. The floor was different tiles. You'll see one of Paul's paintings. It was this visual exploration of life through color and art, and that came into my blood. Came into me. On the same side, I felt that pain and sadness. It's my first memory, is the death of my sister. A memory before I came out of my mother, because we're connected. And you can't lose a child and have another one inside you and not have that pass through the umbilical cord. So Paula's a part of me. She's always been a part of me, and she's my angel. She's been my guide my whole life. Here's my father holding me, and this, as a mother, and anyone who's ever held a newborn, you don't have to be a mother, this floppy, babies just have no bones, practically. I mean, they do, but they're not like our bones, they're soft and mushy. And the protection of my father, the holding the baby, just that skin on skin, the naked skin. And also, I just want to point out, my mother doesn't paint people black, white, yellow, red, orange. There's no color. We're all colored different ways. It's not what race we are. And it's just important to me because I think we get too focused on that sometimes. And everybody's a different color every time, And in the panier. So I was born in Paris, and this is how my mother and my father walked around with me, in the panier, carrying me around.
I just want to say one thing about that. At this point, too, I just looked at her. I never took my eyes off her. It's like being sure she's breathing in that panier, So it's also that intensive kind of looking that's involved in what you're seeing here, too.
Okay, so this is...
Go on to torture her even more.
That's just the sun in my eyes. Okay. Because none of us are ever unhappy in childhood. But, these are fabulous. And I wish I had all these dresses and clothes and I could walk around in them still. But I love this. How many kids get their own life-size doll that's them, it's like, and it was terry cloth, so it was really fun. It was tactile, and I could cart myself around. And also that my mother wasn't stuck on the wall. These paintings, her art moves with us, and it's all over the place, including in a, canvas doll.
I have to say, when Dwayne McGregor designed this cover, which you maybe can't see right now, and made this little thing with Nicole here on the orange, that was all her idea. I thought it was fascinating. Right, something you can see in the back of your catalog, but that's the image she was working with.
This frog, you will actually see him multiple times. I think he may be in one other painting. He was like my best friend. Big stuffed animal frog. My mother always painted what was going on in our lives and with us. So I was just coming into puberty here, and I was really exploring. I had this silk shawl that I loved. You're like first starting to notice your body, and that was, this silk shawl that I would wrap up, and it was really nice. And then this is a little bit, moving on. And now I kind of want to be a little more sexy and out there. And, I was French, more into the French look with my beret. And I traveled back and forth with my father to France and Morocco. We did as children. And I was starting to wear makeup. And this is actually I had lived in France for half a year. This is Edmond. He was a guy I liked, and he gave me this when I left. So those things were, and this quilt is also part of my whole life. And that's a very famous artist too, Radka Donnell, who her quilts have been in all my life, and in my brother's life, and in my children's life, and I have a marriage quilt. She did that quilt. So other artists are part of our life too.
I should mention she died this year, but that was another. I have really been blessed with artist friends through the years, and Radka was another person that was in grad school with me, and whose work we all sleep. We have her quilts every year. She's still very alive with all of us.
This is me, pregnant with Shira. And what I want to say about this is that my pregnancy was not easy for my family. I was 19. I was unmarried. It wasn't. I was supposed to be Secretary General of the UN or something, and
well, that's what she told me she wanted to be.
No, that's what I thought I was going to be doing. And now my daughter gets to do that. So she's on the path. Anyway, So this, my mom came out when I was, I told her I was going to have the baby early. You know, she better come out a month ahead of time. So she came out, and this was just her and me, and it was a way for her to start to celebrate that my pregnancy, because it had been a very painful and complicated. It was, you know, it was just hard. It's complicated when your child becomes pregnant and you're not married, and it's just not an easy thing. But it was a joyful, this is how I felt about it, okay? I was in total bliss and ecstatic to be pregnant with this person. I would be pregnant all the time. It was my favorite thing in the world, nursing and being pregnant. But I can't physically do that. So, and there's my son Isaac here too, and there's one more who's not here. So I love being pregnant, and the juxtaposition here where you see the difference of my pregnancy with Shira and my mother's pregnancy with me, you know, of the death and the beauty and the color and affirming of life, but also not this. So that, but life and death are co-joined, okay, and we're all here. Okay. Are we almost done with me?
Yes,
okay.
we are. Or your son, you know, your son will just do the act.
So this is, my mother likes to do collaboration, and I'm a very spiritually practicing person. This word in Hebrew is tikkun, which means to heal, repair, mend, and transform. The tikkun olam is what the path of a Jewish person is, or who takes it on. Any person, really. But, and tikkun means to heal. And it's what I believe in, and I think we all do it in different ways, to heal and repair. So I wrote the Hebrew, and that's a portrait of me. And I have a website called Open Heart, Open Hands. I'm a writer. This is what I do when I pray, when I sing, when I chant. I can't not do this. So, and in the earlier painting in the studio, the gallery, you saw with my hands. This is even before I was really actively on my spiritual path, consciously, I was doing this. So it's part of who I am, and my mother captures that. And this is the last piece, and all I'll say about that is it has the Hamsa, which is an important Jewish symbol of life and protection, which of course we all need. Doesn't mean you don't suffer or have hardship, but we want to also have protection. And then frogs. Frogs are still important to me. I have a frog here. And I'll just say one thing about frogs. The reason why they're so important to me is because their skin is permeable. And just like my mother pregnant with me and my sister's death, and that permeated me, there's no skin. Frogs feel everything. That's why they're endangered in our environment. Their skin is porous. They're even pregnant, you know, there's no barriers. So that experience of being permeable, of having no boundary, is part of who I am. And I'm also working to have boundaries, because it's not actually very easy to be that way. So the next part of my life, as I move into menopause, is all about boundaries. I won't be a frog anymore. I'm probably going to have to switch my image. Maybe a toad.
Well, the turtle.
The turtle. Okay, somebody else's turn now.
I think it's Paul next. Let me check. Please, Beautiful, Nicole. Okay, Paul.
Thank God.
So this is one of the earliest pieces my mom did with collage of putting us together. A lot of these are very hard to transport anymore, and whatever paste she was using is kind of degraded. And, as a beginning artist, right? Whatever you may be looking at something 50 years later and like, oh, why did I use that color? And here's Mom, one of the few paintings that she did of me. I remember as a child being upset that there were all of these paintings of her pregnant with Nicole and none. Indignant. So, go ahead and do the next slide, Mom.
Well, it was a little hard to do by the time he
there was me running around.
So later on, she started to make things up to me. So this was one of my favorite pieces. I was huge into comic books. So these are all different Marvel Comics characters. I adored comics. I had over 4,000 of them when I was around this age. And they're also the characters that I drew. So this and this one. And this guy down here and these guys. So those were all little things that I drew. And I love that my mom put what I drew is, how old am I? 1977, I was 11 here. The pieces that I drew were on equal footing with, my favorite superheroes and stuff. That was like the coolest thing, I loved that. So, and then she sold this piece. So many pieces haven't sold. This one got sold, so that was, a real tragedy for me. But anyway. Next slide, please. So here, this is actually the one on the right here is part of a study for a number of pieces that Mom did all these different things, and she said at the time that she felt like I had so many different personas that she couldn't capture them. So this is the 5 faces of Paul, and she did a bunch of different studies that are in black and white drawings, and so some of those ended up in the piece and some didn't. This is my bedroom, what Nicole talked about.
Yeah.
Every surface being painted differently, having different stuff on it. So literally the windowsills have been painted in all these festive colors. The floor here, we had these polychrome carpet tiles, which were a huge pain in the neck, and they were constantly degrading and coming off, and you'd trip over them, and then nobody made them anymore, so they couldn't be replaced. So we were like, So at any rate, there was just color and stuff. And my room was filled with all these things, everything all around. Covers from comics. That's my stepfather Kenny's band, Kenny and the Critics right there above my turntable. C-3PO from Star Wars. Again, this is one of my drawings. And some of the ones up there too. So again, that thing of representing everything together. Next slide. And so, I went through lots of different phases. And this one, I was, again, some of my characters, and Joe Jackson from the Night and Day album. I was really into Joe Jackson. And she called this piece Paul Looking Sharp. That's a Joe Jackson album, Look Sharp. And I had all these nice clothes I used to wear. I grew up in the 70s in Boulder, so everybody was a hippie, everybody was stoned, everybody had long hair, right? That was what it was. So my way of not conforming was to wear 3-piece suits from the 1930s. And Nicole
You were
also,
real popular for that.
Nicole also wore beautiful
completely
vintage
different.
dresses.
Yeah.
We both looked really good, and those were very hard years for me. And I remember feeling in junior high that if I felt like shit, it was okay as long as I looked great. So really good clothes. I was devastated once I wore this particular outfit to an Elvis Costello concert, which I went to with a friend of mine's mother, who we were very close friends. And when she saw me, she said, "Oh, you've dressed like a Pennsylvania Dutch Amish." And I was devastated. That was not at all what I was going for. Little later, I moved to San Francisco right out of high school, and that's actually in the window box there. So this shape here, I don't know if this is broadcasting or recording. So this is Picasso's Guernica, and I remember seeing that piece in Barcelona. It was very, very powerful. It's about the Spanish bombings and a lot of death and stuff. But anyway, it's a very famous piece. It's actually on a T-shirt that was from Little Stephen and the Disciples of Soul, who were one of my favorite bands. My stepfather Kenny turned me around to them. So that was on the shirt, which I got in San Francisco, and my mom, of course, recognized the Guernica box, so she put it up here, and this is one of my drawings. This is my interpretive sketch of the San Francisco city line. That's the Transamerica Tower. So, in my bass case, which I was learning to play the bass guitar at that point in my life, and then I ended up being in a band after I came back to Boulder, and so that was very much a part of my life.
I want to say one thing about the drawings. At this point, you'll see I have both collaborative drawings where the kids are painting and drawing right on the canvas, and then you'll see where I'm copying them. Like I'm copying him. I love his drawings, but he didn't draw those onto the canvas. I was drawing his drawings, and so that whole interactive thing that went on too about, and I still to this day, what I love about them is looking at his drawings, not mine. So, as that. Okay. Next one.
So then this is a nice one. This is again another collaboration. So my mother drew me, and the center of my eyeball is the middle of that circle. So that's what I use, when I'm drawing. The center point and the circle is everything in Islamic design. So I created this 10-point interlaced star going around sort of as a mandala, an idea that we play with in that photograph as well that you saw at the start of the section on me. So getting that idea of those circles coming in and integrating that together. And it's fun being in pieces together. And then here's the latest one that my mom did where she put all of our family together. So it's great to have that too, bringing different hands, etc. So, and one of my little designs in the corner, okay?
Catherine Taylor.
Yes, Catherine's down there. Yeah. And Paula's feet. Paula's walking all over. And those are from her birth paper, right? Yeah.
Her birth certificate, yeah, the stamping of the foot.
So.
That's actually her footprint.
Right, that's the word. And this, I love how we find the chance to do the installation, and that Alessandra picked that beautiful red color that's behind those pieces in the gallery. And this was the most conscious piece in the whole show. The most, that I set out to do, to bring the circle around, because I knew the show was going to happen. And I hadn't done them in a while, and I wanted to update it. But everything else was just done in the moment, or done with what I was involved with. So this was, I don't know, perhaps more conceptual or something, but it also reflects more of the work I'm doing older by picking the wood and the grain and texture. And I'm not drawing the same way here. There's still contour that's alive in it, but now I'm picking up something else, the grain, and also the issue of the footprints. You're only going to see a few of these, but I don't remember if I've included one of my own. But I put the footprints outside the children, but when you see them in the pieces that were of me, one is in my head and one is in my hand. So the way she's traveled through all of us is kind of part of it. There with Miss Sheeran.
You can go to the next slide. This is not my grandmother's art, but
But your my sister-in-law, Kenny's sister, took that photo of her.
absolutely.
So beautiful.
So one of the things you'll notice in these is that I'm gazing at her. And I think being a subject of my grandmother's art has given me this profound love of the old and someone who would take time. These ones are painting them faster, but you'll see in the one that was in the show, the pencil drawing, and that took a lot of time. I remember just how long she would paint or draw over each line. And just to be the subject where you are worthy of being seen for that long. And so I think, what I remember of these is that they were always gazing at the walls. I think as a kid, I actually loved looking at my mother and my uncle. I don't think I spent a lot of time staring at myself in these. I really remember learning about growing up by looking at the paintings of my mom and my uncle. But of course, the collaboration continued. She let me draw on the canvas.
Paint
On the canvas.
And signed it up above, Shira.
And I think these also remind me that I was just always extremely intense. I mean, clearly there's wow.
Yes, always expensive.
So I hated my hair as a kid. It was oppressive. But in this painting you'd think otherwise, so clearly my grandmother saw something else in me, a kind of little girl that maybe I wasn't willing to give myself freedom to be, but I think she gave me that freedom in this piece, which she thinks I look super old. She made me a little wrinkly here. Those were obviously all objects of my room.
And that you painted.
She painted
Yeah,
them
those are
all
all-
over. Those are her things there. And she also filled the hair out after she did the brush.
Right, it never ended. My hair just kept going. There was no end to the hair.
It's beautiful hair.
Well, again, this is the Menopause series, 1993, and Shira comes to visit, so you can see, I don't know, somehow we're in the same color, and I don't know, I just wanted to show you that juxtaposition again about life and death, children, the elder, the different things you're feeling, and that it's all swimming in the same pond somehow. And I also love that the skeleton, what's the skeleton to you, Shira? It's a whole different thing.
Well, my grandmother remembers that at the time the skeleton was like a fun, playful Halloween image. You know, I think what I remember of this, because these were painted the same year, is just how beautiful the bones are. You know, I remember as a kid just being just in love with this piece, because in other words, that the death is stunning and spectacular. What you get to see underneath. I mean, that's just what I remember. And so I don't know. I love that you see. I also got to see down to my own bones. Right? She painted me with bones. So to really just be aware of our physicality, but also that will end.
And also the Day of the Dead and all the wonderful Mexican art that I've always loved, Posada, and I studied a lot of his work to come up with these to make my own little creatures.
Helen, I think always encouraged us to be in our body. So every time I would come to visit her, it was just get outside, dance, play, move. And that comes from her own injuries as well in her body. So I think this was, I remember always in her yard, that was a lot of my summertime.
And we were all just out in the yard doing yoga this morning.
Every time. Being a teenager, oh boy. I recently adopted my fiance's niece, and she's 17. I adopted her when she was 15. It's good to have these memories of what a tyrant I was at that age, so I have compassion for her. I was pretty angry. I mean, I think my grandmother captured it well with the color. I was angry at the world for all the pain that I saw and witnessed that I didn't think was fair. That red fiery tiger. I mean, I don't remember what made you do that. I don't know if I was wearing tiger patterns or if it was just the emotion you felt in my face, but it captures.
You did have a tiger
I
t-shirt
did.
at
Okay.
the time.
So maybe I was into
And
the
you
prints.
are a tiger.
And 7 years later, coming full circle, my mother talked about being spiritual. I think when I finally began to let go and really feel at peace was when I found a connection to ritual and religion that transcended time. And so this is when I was really becoming connected to Judaism and a prayer practice. And I remember also that being very hard for Helen, because she is always about breaking the rules and being anti-convention. And again, like Paul said, for me, breaking the rules was being connected to this ancient tradition. And that summer, when she drew this, I was saying Hebrew in the house all the time, and that was very hard for my grandmother to hear those kind of words that felt very oppressive to her. But I think you can see that she still saw me. She still honored it. She still made that beautiful to the world and witnessed it, even if I knew for her it was very difficult.
In dream symbology, feet represent the foundation that carries the whole load, the overall program for this lifetime. So I'm seeing her as stepping forward into the future. I'm supporting her from the past. But in this precious connected moment, we touch ground together. And also the last thing I did here was to put those shards of glass, because has been clear to me for quite some time that Shira's path is a difficult one. She's a warrior. She's out in the world coping with terribly difficult issues at work, politically, and personally in her own life. So and the water is flowing over all of us, the healing, the ground, the earth, the water. But I know that there's that glass. And then, isn't that a strange one too? Shira had a terrible bike accident and really injured her foot. She's had
After this, yeah.
well, a number of years after. But
Yeah.
So it's very interesting in art. Often things are coming through that you don't know them consciously, but it's in, when you work in that kind of way that some of us do, something deep comes through that is of a psychic nature, an archetypal nature. And I think this has not only, it just has a lot of meaning, and that is one of the ones that I wanted Shira to have, almost like an amulet of protection for her. Okay, we're going to give Isaac the choice.
You can see him right here, too.
All right. So we have
Here,
a
you can look here, yeah.
slightly more jovial story now. Some smiles.
Yes, Isaac means laughter in Hebrew.
So these are me and a lot of, obviously my grandmother's pictures show, what's in people's lives, and she's done that very well with me. And when I was a little kid, I really liked swords, and so she's really, depicted me through my life with all of the different things I've been going through, and supported me in all of them. And there's some collaboration in our pieces. I'm sure you can tell which parts I drew. Yeah. So, and that second one's my Camp One Rainbow hippie tie-dye phase. It's good times.
And it really had all those skeletons running around on it from the Grateful Dead, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Wavy gravy.
Wavy gravy.
All right, and then we've got my hand in hers. These were always really fascinating to me, just doing them, and being there with her and looking at the difference in our bodies when she was painting them. And here you have me in my favorite shirt again. She would always, we would come out for the summer, and she always wanted to know, what are you interested in? What's going on in your life? She was my grandmother, and she always managed to capture, amazingly looking back. I can remember where I was in my life just based off of the pictures, basically, I'm like, yeah, that's what I was into. I was into dragons, and I had all these silky shirts that I was wearing, So.
And of course, I love his drawings. Mean so much to me.
Yeah.
There,
Snake.
which I think you can see all over there. The snake and the little color bands. I think almost. I don't know if we were doing some of those together, but a lot of that is Isaac.
Yeah.
There's swirls and things.
All right, and then we have some older pictures of me, and if you guys have read what I said in the catalog, my grandmother's art has always meant a lot to me, just because I've always felt she saw a really beautiful picture of me, even when I didn't like myself so much. So that's what these represent to me, and this is not a collaboration on the right, because as I got older, I was much more into her art as opposed to doing mine, but she still wanted to put the things I was interested in. So there's a video game character on my shoulder, what I was doing with myself at that point, and that's Darth Fruit at the bottom. Isaac and Darth Fruit is the name of the character.
Well, that's the last one.
All right.
Yeah.
Yay, Isaac! Okay, this is my son Ethan, our son, I should say. I do have a husband, and he's the parent of all these children. And he had adopted the Isaac and Shira, and Ethan is ours biologically. Ethan is 18 now, and he's at school. Well, not right now, but he's not here for that reason. This is him, age 5, and just mom would just sort of. I think he was probably less inclined. I think he might have been watching one of the videos that Kenny made for him of He-Man or something that he liked. And then here is him discovering Go. Paul is a Go player and works with children and teaches them Go, and it's one of the things that he's done with all of my children. And I don't know, Sherry, you never got into Go. No, that was not your thing. But Isaac played Go with Paul some, and also these are anime characters. Is that what they're called? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Ethan likes that a lot too.
Originally, I was going to do kind of a survey of the different works I do, because I saw other artists do that here, and because it isn't just about the children, all my work, but that was what, when I had the chance to do this show, that was what was the heart work that I've done, and that's what I wanted to do. But this work about aging has been very deep and full, and some of you here have been in my workshops, and I've learned so much from you. So I think you can read that. And again, see the collage work and the going down to the bone and the shift in how I'm looking at things. And that constant need to go inside, both the inside and the outside being part of the image. And I just wanted to do a juxtaposition again because I found that interesting. Shira actually helped me put PowerPoints together a number of years ago, and we would see a juxtaposition like this one. And it's like I'm looking down in my lap in 1964 at my baby, my real baby, Nicole. And in 2006, I'm looking down at my old body, and I like that, and my thumb is, it's always about transformation. Somehow it's about finding the way through the alchemy, the beauty of what is there. So the butterfly becomes an important symbol there too.
So, Nador Vador is Hebrew for from generation to generation, but English is not like Hebrew. It's a part of our prayer service, and it's an idea that we are carrying each other and through time, on and on and on. So Nador Vador is that even if somebody has left this earth, we're still remembering them. In the Jewish tradition and in many traditions, we remember our dead. We mark their death, the time when they die, the year. We light a candle, we say prayers, we remember them on the anniversary of their death. We remember them 3 times during the year, every year, special services for people who are in mourning. So that a person dies, but they're not gone. Of course they're not gone. So in our tradition we carry them, but it's also about that the young carry the tradition forward, not just that the old or the young have left us and we're grieving them. We remember also that we're carrying it forward, that we're praying, and that we have behind us our ancestors and those who've passed, and going forward our children and our grandchildren and all those we touch, not just our children, but anyone we make contact with. So the hands. The reason for this is that when my sister died, my parents were not religious and they were in mourning and crisis. And my mother was told she wasn't allowed to grieve, basically. You know, she had to focus on the baby in her tummy. And now anybody who knows anything about death and grieving knows you don't tell somebody that, okay? But that's what was being said. And so it was excruciating. And there wasn't really any ceremony ever done for Paula. And I'm a very religious person, and I prepare people for burial according to Jewish tradition, and I help people deal with death all the time. And so on the anniversary of my sister's death, the 30-year anniversary, I said to my mother, I'm going to say Kaddish for Paula, and I'm going to get a minyan. A minyan is 10 people together in our home, and on the anniversary of her death, I'm going to do this for her and for me. And I know it's difficult, and I'm going to continue to do it. And it was, she didn't like talking about Paula. The paintings are there, but it wasn't really something we talked a lot about. And my father didn't like talking about it either. But I always went to her grave as a child. It's a beautiful grave. There aren't any pictures of it here, but you can see them on my website because I write about that process, so if you want to know. So this painting that my mother did, the drawing, is her hand and Paula's hand. And she did that in response to my saying I was going to say Kaddish for Paula. And I have said Kaddish for her every year on the 16th.
And I think for me, again, the amazing alchemy of art, what I saw when I created that was that she's still with me. And that just felt so reassuring and beautiful. And now I do remember her every year at the yard site. And then I keep the other thing, you know, when I first showed you the drawings of her, the black and whites, the spontaneous, quick things, now I'm on things that a year goes by and I work on it again. You know, there's something that needs expression or to go farther. So there isn't even an end point to these things. And this is actually a Xerox of the drawing, which has been changed lots of times too. And then I started putting her footprints in again too, that I Xeroxed, and just different ways to keep working with it. And again, something I've learned from the workshops. We do more talk therapy in the grief groups I'm with, but the art or music or dance or other forms are so much what we need at these times. The talk only, the words only go so far. There really needs to be to be able to deal with things or tap in on some level. You need the art or other ways of coming through. And this is very much that, as I say, you can see it's originating with the same hand drawing that got Xeroxed, and then I Xeroxed them all over. And this is so layered. This is so not typical of my work.
Isaac, and that's Shira, babies.
Yeah. Putting photographs in, mixing the media, layering it, pieces of paper, sticking, pasting, just, it's also a stage in, it's very much with yoga, the oneness of the universe too, of feeling everything in the simultaneity of what it is, and that you were one more element in the universe. And as that was coming in spiritually for me, there simply were no boundaries again. Everything was in that layered kind of enmeshed, interconnected way. So very unlike how I do my portraits, the simplicity or the line or the staring at one single figure. I love this quote, "We live life forward but understand it backward." It's been a long and winding road to get to the point of this exhibition. There are 53 years since the first drawing of Paula. My children and grandchildren are now 50, 49, 30, 28, and 18, and I am 75 years old. It's been actually, Alessandra, 2 years since we first talked about this. And God bless her, the first moment, I don't even know what I said, but she got it. She got it instantly, when so many other people could have cared less. So that meant a great deal to me, and that sort of activated a whole process of bringing this exhibition forward, bringing the catalog forward, all of the things that I've been working on for the last 2 years. It also took 9 months to birth the catalog with Dwayne McGregor and Anne-Marie Welsh, my midwives. Without both of them, without many people, I couldn't have done it. But those two women were really with me through the words and the images all the way through, and assuring me it really was. It was good. Because there is a point of just pure craziness where you wonder, what am I doing? And the other thing about the time, it so runs counter to our culture, to the speed and the fix and the instant everything that we live with today. And there's movements called slow looking, slow cooking, slow eating. And I love the new one, slow medicine, which is about refusing all those, things, all the surgeries and the procedures they want to do to you, and maybe accepting the point of where you are, and particularly later in your life, that you're not going to keep interventions that become insane, but accept the natural path of where your body is or what's happening. So I think that's one of the messages I want to leave you with. That maybe in your own life, you can think about something that's worth doing, and it can take a very long time. Raising children takes a long time too. But there was a lovely young woman who came up to me that said she was thinking about having a baby and being an artist. I don't know if she's here now. Yes, you are, Sarah, right? Yeah, I thought that was beautiful. And wondering, how do you do it or something? Well, none of us could tell you how to do it, but it takes as much creativity to make your life as it does to make art to do this. But I was thinking it's worth the doing, because something's tough isn't a reason we don't do it. Again, I want to thank Alessandra. It feels like a very deep honoring to see these works presented the way they have been to me, to my children. And a special thanks to my husband, Kenny Weisberg, who's supported us all through the years. That's and let's see, I've mentioned Connie, but how about standing up, Connie and Ann, for a moment? Can you both stand up? She's come. She took the plane in from Northern California here to be with me, Connie. So turn around and face them. As I said, they're both incredible artists. Connie and I did life drawing together. She drew me pregnant with Paula. We have quite a history. And Ann was with me in the early days when we formed Front Range, Women in the Visual Arts. She worked on Judy Chicago's Dinner Party. So I've kept a long history of women artists close that have been very inspirational to me over the years. I may not see them that often. Connie and I can have a conversation on the phone, and our minds are in the same places. We're fidgeting over the same art problem. It's unbelievable, and our work is totally different. But it's fascinating to have that kind of relationship. I just want to mention the second part. Did I mention it? The second part of this exhibition is at the Women's Museum, and I hope you'll come there too. And on the 25th of April?
23rd?
Kathy, no, that's when the show opens. But Kathy Evans is helping me organize a program that we're going to do with moms that have lost children. Well, anyone, actually. We said loss. Anyone that wants to come, where we're going to go through the show, and we're going to have, it's an interactive thing. We don't know what it is, but we're creating an event for that. And I think that is the, it's very important to me to share this work with a younger generation, also to share it with other people that have lost children. And I know there are several in the audience. To share it with my children and my grandchildren. That's a great gift, and my friends and strangers. Thank you, any strangers that came into the room to look at it. And we're going to open this up to questions or thoughts or sharing of anything. And just thank you again. Namaste. I can truly celebrate.
Yes, Mom. You can
If
relax.
anybody has to go, that's fine. But
You're amazing. Thank you.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Yeah, go. Yes. I'm going to repeat the question so it can be heard on the thing. I've done this before. During your career, was there any artist that inspired you, or what was the other thing you said? Influenced you.
First of all, every artist I've ever known has inspired me and influenced me. And in the era that I grew up in, often it was a peer group. We didn't have modeling role mentors more now, and there's so many women teaching today. I didn't have that. I had incredible male artists that really did get it and helped me. But in terms of well-known artists, the first artists I think that I really got into were the German Expressionists, Vincent van Gogh, the Fauves, Matisse. That was sort of the graduate school era. Later I became aware of Alice Neal, whose work really has a relationship to mine. And in fact, we were born on the same day, January 28th, and she lost a child also. So I didn't learn that till later. And then Frida Kahlo's, I've known about her work for a very long time, probably before. I think I had a filmmaker friend who had gotten us to go to some documentary in Boulder. One of the first, I don't know, maybe Alessandra knows, there was a black and white documentary on Frida that was made a long time ago. It was a very powerful film, so I was aware of her work early on, and I feel like those were art sisters that gave me even more courage to go into this subject matter. So, and also I feel every person that touches my life inspires me or helps me. I don't know. Oh, I love this gesturing. It's so beautiful. This woman is so beautiful. Yeah, but wait, Tanya.
Yeah, can you,
I want to say the installation was outstanding. I want to compliment you and your staff. And I was curious about the signage. And I wondered, Helen, did you do the lettering on the various names of your children and grandchildren that were above eye level?
Oh, no, that's,
I want to say down to details like that. It was wonderful.
actually, I've been involved with nearly every detail on this
I
show.
was curious about that.
Okay, where's
I have
Dwayne?
a question.
Dwayne, would you stand up? This woman.
This woman, boy, talk about the gift for me this year was, oh, hey, there's this gal out there. Rather well-known artist in town, but it was the first time I'd met her. Although at the Women's Museum, there's an enormous piece in the office of two women with lettering behind that I've been staring at for 2 solid years, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So it's a delight, and a delight working with the family. I'm not surprised about all this. It's tight, it's close, it's loving. It's firecrackers. It's wonderful. It's been a joy. Thank you.
And it was Dwayne that, when you asked about the lettering,
Yes.
she chose that that thing, do you see where it says Lifelines? That little squiggle. I just love that she got that. And then Jenny and Alessandra had to go through ordering vinyl letters to get that. There was quite a process on everything here. So I'm glad you noticed it. But all the writing on the children I did with the help of Anne Marie Welsh. So and my husband, he was editing constantly.
So I'm going to take the rabbinic role here for a minute and just say it's been a pleasure and a blessing to have you all be here with us. And thank you for your time, for your presence, for your kindness. And please make love, be friendly, be loving and kind, take care of each other. We're really glad you were here. Shalom.